Hi, Military Marriage Day. I am so happy to be here with you all. Today, I want to talk about my top tip to make your arguments with your spouse that much easier so you can really enjoy the best parts of your relationship. Hi, I'm Dr. Lindsay Cavanagh. I am a military marriage coach. I have been a military psychologist for the past 14 years, working with hundreds of military couples. And I'm just very passionate about helping military families have the strongest marriage they possibly can. Because when that foundation is created, all the rest of military life gets a little bit easier. I really wish I could be with you all in person. However, I am home with a newborn and my husband has just deployed. So I know that you all know a little something about that. So let's get started. First, why do I want to talk about conflict? It's not a very fun topic, right? However, I think that conflict is inevitable, right? You are not going to have a deep and meaningful relationship without having some sort of conflict, without disagreeing, without seeing something in a different way, without inadvertently hurting each other's feelings. That just comes with the territory of a deep and meaningful relationship. However, I also believe that conflict or really nothing moves a relationship forward like conflict does. Because think about it, when we are angry or when we are having conflict with our spouse, it is signifying that something isn't working, that something isn't right. And so once we're able to address that and fix that, now the relationship is that much stronger and is really that much better. And that's why I like to focus on conflict and how we can make it as best and as easy as possible, because I know that you all don't have that much time together and you certainly don't want to spend it fighting. Am I right? So, my top tip to improve conflict with your spouse is creating rules. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's talk about kind of outside of our relationships for a second. So, if you think about like sports games, right? There are rules in sports games and they are for two specific purposes. One, they create safety by creating boundaries. People know, what's hitting below the belt, what they need to stay within, and it ensures that players remain safe. It really tries to protect players from unnecessary injury. The other thing that rules do is it ensures that the results are fair. So if your team wins, you can ensure that it's fairly won because teams are staying within the lines, right? Also in sports games, there are consequences if you break the rules. I really like to apply this to arguments as well. And I think it's really important for a couple of reasons. First, arguments need safety. If I'm going to be vulnerable, talk about what it is that I need to see different, if I'm going to talk about what it is that's hurting me, I need to know that I'm safe to do that. I need to know that my spouse isn't going to, inadvertently hit below the belt, that I'm not going to inadvertently hit below the belt, and that sort of thing. The second thing is I want to make sure that the conflict is fair. I want to make sure that we each are getting our say and that we each are really working together to find a solution that works for everyone, right? So, in order to do this, we want to create a set of rules, and this is going to be your homework. And so, how you want to do this is first think on your own. What kinds of things need to be in place in order for you to be able to have conflict in an easier way? For example, what kinds of things trigger you? Me personally, I really don't like yelling. It's very triggering for me. I don't like it. I shut down when I hear it. And so I probably need a rule around that. For other people, maybe it is saying, calling it names or, saying things in a derogatory manner, or, right? There's going to be a lot of things. So think about, when it comes to conflict, what triggers you? What do you really not like? And these are the things that now you're going to start creating rules around. And so I kind of like to do this on your own first, do this separately, and then you can come together and then you can talk about it. So some rules that I really like to bring up for clients that I work with in my own marriage is first, there's a rule to only talk about the thing that you are upset about in that moment, one thing at a time, right? So when you're having an argument, you can't say, well, today you did this, and then last Wednesday, and then 5 years ago, right? Like we're only dealing with one thing at a time. It also means if my spouse brings something up, I can't bring something else up until we've dealt with that one thing, right? Really sticking to just one at a time. It really streamlines things and makes sure that everything is, works a little bit better. Right. The other rule that I really like for people kind of universally is to remain respectful. Now, this might look a little bit different for everybody because I know some couples that I've worked with, they can yell and remain respectful while they're doing it. For others, that would be a sign of disrespect. So talking about what does respect look to you all and making sure you're on the same page there. The next rule that I usually talk about is not using any sort of ultimatum, not bringing up things, right? If you don't do this, I'm not going to do that. Sex is a big one that gets used in this way. And I really, really highly recommend not doing that, right? Where it's if you don't clean the dishwasher the way you said you were, then I'm not going to have sex with you, right? We really don't want to connect the two. You want to keep intimacy as its own unique thing. Also, along those same lines, we don't want to bring up things that we won't actually follow through with. So I'm not going to threaten divorce, say, unless I really am ready to go down to the courthouse tomorrow and file those papers. Do not say things to get reactions. So that's just to get you started. And so what you want to do is kind of take some of those rules, start to think about what triggers you, and now you come together as a couple and you talk about what rules you need. Preferably, you are doing this when you are not angry at each other, when you are not in conflict. You get this set up ahead of time. So then when you're in conflict, you aren't trying to figure this out too. You already know where those limits are. You know what happens, right? So thinking about that separately, coming together, and now you're developing what rules you might need. Also, along with this, I would talk about what sort of consequences you want in place if somebody crosses a line or breaks a rule, so to speak. So for me in my marriage, that would be we will immediately stop talking and take a break from each other, right? Somebody breaks a rule, that is our signal that we aren't in the best space to even be having the conversation. And so one of us can kind of wave a flag and say, we need a break. We need a 10-minute break to cool off. For us, we do set a timer with it so that we can come back, because just because we're cooled down doesn't mean we still don't have to have the conversation. That is something that we had to put as a rule because my husband wanted to just walk away and forget that it ever happened. So what kinds of things are you going to put in place? The other thing is, if you break a rule, now you also know you have to make it right. You have to say you're sorry. You have to make some sort of amends because you have gone over the line with some sort of consequence, right? So start thinking about what consequences, and again, it's not like an in trouble thing, but what kinds of things are you going to do if someone breaks a rule? It could be as simple as taking a break or something along those lines. And so now you have these rules in place, you have the consequences in place. The next time that you have an argument, see how it goes, see what works, see what doesn't, and then have later on what I call a process conversation where you're talking about yeah, that rule really helped. That one didn't. Let's tweak it this way. So you're constantly revising this. So just because you create these rules doesn't mean they are set in stone. Really figure out what works, what doesn't, and make little tweaks along the way. Along those same lines, you all change as people, your life change, circumstances change. And so, what might work at one point in your life may not work at another point in your life. And so, that is something that comes up too. So, you have these rules in place to create safety. You have consequences in place to ensure that you're never just breaking them without, regard for each other. And you're constantly amending them as they go. If you need help to talk about what rules might work for you all or what kind of consequences you need, that would be a great time to reach out to somebody else. And I say that because no one teaches us how to do conflict, especially how to do it well, right? I know that I didn't learn how to do that. And so there is no shame in the game of not knowing how to do this. And it is a little complicated at first, especially when you're in conflict and emotions are high. It's hard to do something different. You fall into old patterns, and that's what happens. So, reaching out to somebody who can be sort of outside of that, who can be unemotional, who can really take an outside look and see what's going well, what's not, what tweaks, that is also a really great thing. And luckily, us as military members have a very, very wonderful support network that we can utilize to help us through this. There's certainly me. I am happy to take on free calls in order to help you with this, but I know that there are a ton of resources out there, many of which you've heard from today and will have access to. So that's a great time while you're initially creating rules and practicing using them. This is a great time to really get that support. Just because we don't normally do it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. I really think that you set this foundation early. Now you get all that time back, right? Arguments no longer take hours long or days long. You don't lose that precious time that you have arguing about something. And so take the time to utilize those resources. And your homework is going to be really thinking about rules and what you need to fight safe, to fight well, to create really healthy compromises for the both of you. And I cannot wait to see what this does to your marriage. So I know that my contact information will be there. Send me messages. Let me know how this works for you. Let me know what questions that you all have. Again, I can't believe that I can't be there this year, but I hopefully will make the next one. And just know that I am with you all, and I am really proud of what you all are doing for your marriage just simply by showing up today. So fight well, my friends, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.